what we got as a feedback. One of our co-organizers thought we don't use Slack all the time, and he was like, "Oh, I'd be happy if we could move to Slack rather than Discord." Have you used Discord or?
I have not.
No.
Slack is great as long as you're not switching between too many workspaces. It's so slow. I don't do it a lot. Discord is basically Slack, but you can
also very close, because everything tends to go away from object oriented, going towards a mix of both. So you have the choice between using only like using classes, but also in creating your own stuff. But also you can like just create random objects and tell yourself, yeah, that's whatever.
You're talking about Kotlin?
I'm actually talking about Swift, Kotlin, and
no spoiler.
TypeScript.
There's an event on Saturday. Cobra is going to be
Yeah.
talking about it. Like, we have another event this week. It's so crazy this week.
Okay.
But it's with Cobra. I can't pronounce the name. She's from G Reading. She's worked for like really massive groups like FC Barcelona and a lot of.
Is that here too?
It's happening in the Workbench on Saturday at 1 p.m. 2 hours, where she's going to be talking about Kotlin. You've probably heard of it everywhere, and the transition from Java to Kotlin and why Google's going to be using Kotlin basically. She's very involved with anything Googly. She's actually bringing goodies and stickers, which is pretty cool. And she'll be here. She's traveling all the way. We don't know how many people are going to join up because it's in the middle of the day. But if you guys want to join, even if you want to have like free food, because we'll have free food, you can join, or free coffee. But yeah, she's specifically coming to give like a talk about Kotlin, and then after that, like a Codelab, so put your hands on it. Have you guys used Kotlin before?
I'm looking forward to the talk actually.
Yeah. So no spoilers, Julie.
Yeah.
Leave it to Cobra. I don't know what you've done. We're live there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess
just need to change my setup.
so yeah, the goal of this is really casual, where we're going to be talking between us. Students, going to be explaining a few things, trying to connect with people that have the same interests. The ultimate goal, and with the forum, specifically with the forum, is to sort of have this conversation where if we can help anybody solve a problem, then there we go. We also have like mini projects that we're going to be running. Rossano explained that it's available on the forum. There's like an entire deck that talks about it. But basically, we're going to be able to build things together, sort of to explore things. There's an entire website and platform that we're going to try to build. Hello. Welcome. And we'll see how that goes. So if you want to be involved, please be vocal. Tell us, and if you can help others as well, because you probably have experience in all of your fields of expertise. So it's sometimes, and we've seen it very often. It's like, and you know, it probably at work, you get two developers, no one can figure it out, and one guy comes with an idea, and boom, it's solved. So.
Could you all introduce yourselves or say what your areas of expertise is, or what you're working as, or what you want to learn? And I can begin. I'll work in the middle. I'm Deirdre. I'm an assistant to the GAG since 2015, and I'm a software engineering student that's just graduated. So at the moment I'm not working in a development role, but in my side projects I'm interested in natural language processing using Python. So that's something I want to work on front end development a little bit, but that's down the line.
Yeah, sure. My name's Tony Jewell. I've been contracting as a developer for many years. And most recently I've been doing Java development for a financial institution in London. And I've been taking a break from that since August last year. And just enjoying doing lots of different things with different technologies, from microprocessor processing to Python to whatever I can find, just enjoying myself. Trying to rewrite some of my websites.
Is that your?
Yeah,
My name is Vishwa. I work for Aviva. Currently, I've been throughout my career. I've worked on backend stuff. Bit of front-end as well. Recently in my company, I've started up on React.
et tu peux ajouter un programme que tu veux capturer.
There is a big IT team sitting over there. We are just 3 to 4 developers over here.
quoi?
So as a separate project, we are trying
Mais c'est pas
to
zone.
start something on React as well.
Non, ça c'est ton écran.
Interest to learn React.
Ah, ok.
It's front-end as well. So yeah.
Oh, attends, non, je sais pourquoi. Faut que je change la setting de Zoom.
Basically, it's web dev. So half my day, a third of my day is kind of customer facing, doing changes to stores in HTML, Node.js, Liquid. Other half of my day is supporting internal tools, and that covers everything from React to Node to Ruby earlier this week as well, to Python, and it really needs things at the moment. I'm trying to grow to code.
Est-ce que tu vois le bon truc?
So
Parfait.
yeah, I'm looking for 4 or 5 different APIs as well. With all adapt and change, or adapt to change. Yeah, it's the company motto. So it's exciting business.
So I'm Liam. I work across the whole in 910 factory. We make mobile games. My position is DevOps engineer, so I'm breaking into Docker, Kubernetes, Ceph storage, all those lovely complicated server-side technologies. Also do front-end dev with React.
Est-ce que tu peux switch
Vue,
une,
used to do Ruby on Rails,
sur une vue différente?
Java, and I used to work with C# but I just integrate my APIs there. So do lots of different areas, but I still really enjoy React and haven't really done anything in years, so I want to catch up again.
I'm Mandar and I work in a startup in Bangalore, Chancery. So I work as a data scientist, but I also have to do other things as a startup, you know. So I work in JavaScript and Docker and everything towards research and development. So I just want to get more comfortable with JavaScript things, React, Vue, everything. I just get on that.
What's happening over here?
Yeah.
I'm Devin Zimmer. I work for a company called Rent the Runway in the Portishead right now. I'm a JavaScript front-end, React, Ruby guy by trade, but I am a master by no means, and I just want to keep learning more, and even back to the fundamentals sometimes.
So you guys just moved into Portishead like last month or something?
May 1st-ish, somewhere
Okay.
around
You have another building in development.
there. It's building in development is
Is it
a
one
plan.
key?
Sorry?
Is it one key?
Claddocky. So the old schoolhouse down there was renovated recently, and we're fitting it out with office furniture and all the things right now. So hopefully September, October we'll be in there.
How many staff you have there?
That building has a capacity of about 75, and then we're hoping to recruit 150 people over the next 3 or 4 years.
Mostly developers or
Mostly engineers.
Yeah.
Some product in UX, but it's really going to be a lot of engineers.
That's one country, that's great.
Very happy to be in Norway.
When the weather's good.
Where did you come from?
Well, Rent the Runways in Manhattan. So I lived in and around there for 8, 10 years or something like that.
I know so many people I used to work with who did the opposite and went from Galway to somewhere in New York specific. Weird. Good.
Many people are coming from US to here to work. Yeah. I knew someone, a data engineer, she'd come from US to Genesis.
Yeah.
Gold is also pretty attractive because if you're coming from America, then you're that bit closer to, everything else to the east.
There are flights from Shannon,
Yeah,
which is nice.
absolutely.
Shannon makes it really easy to get back and forth.
Yeah. I used to work in retail in Shannon, so a few times I used to finish work on Friday, 5 o'clock, get a play the weekend. Oh, it's so good. Everyone else is doing it for work. I was doing it totally for pleasure. so much more fun that way. Yeah. And all of you guys have pretty much worked with some form of JavaScript before, a little bit of front end, everybody back then, and new here. That's okay.
We can always let you start.
That's it though. I wouldn't say that I'm particularly good in any particular area, but I'm happy to chip away and try and learn stuff. Still have that student mentality.
You gotta come into the language and learn all the new things instead of just glossing over them and doing it the old way.
We have, speaking of language, like in college, in the computer science course on MongoDB, they focus on Java. And on Saturday we have a talk with, I'm not sure if she's a Google expert, but she's a GG lead in London, and she's going to be talking about Kotlin for Android app development. And it is just so sweet compared to writing your apps in Java.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic, I think. She's a really energetic person as well. She's loves giving me stuff, so it should be great.
She's staying in college for the weekend. Or?
She is, and she's actually going as well. I think she's going to talk in the GG at London. I think she's going to Cork and possibly Belfast as well. So yeah, while she's here, she's going to go and try and see as many as possible, which is really great.
Oh, it's what's the Wi-Fi?
The
GTC.
GTC
GTC.
is open.
Exactly.
And the top and college, that's
It's this Saturday at 1 o'clock. In the Innovation Lab on Maingard Street. It's the Bank of Ireland Innovation Lab.
okay, cool.
So it's like in town, above one of the main branches. They have a big space where they rent it out for events, and it's kind of like this already set up as a working space. So we have a few of our more intensive work labs and code labs there. How did you find out about this event?
I was actually looking to get involved in some kind of React front end, and
Nice.
I had a coffee with the data science person in Harrisburg, and he said, well, there's this GDG event happening React Evolved or something like that. He sent me the link. He said, let's try it.
About ready?
Yeah, finally. Are we okay, Tony?
For some reason, I can't actually display Zoom properly.
If we can't stream this one, we should just continue anyways.
Go ahead.
Well,
No, that's fine.
yeah.
I'll find a way.
6 people online, yeah. Are you on a Zoom call already?
Yeah.
That's all set up, it's just the streaming?
Yeah, well, the streaming works as well. It's
Yeah,
just
Zoom's working. Yeah.
So what's the problem?
No more problem. We're good.
it's okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's good. Okay.
Now keep in mind I have your camera here, so I'm gonna just shrink you a tiny bit so people can see. Can you put the code up?
Yeah, well, I was
Your visual code.
the
So like-
visual.
yeah, so I can
Okay.
see.
No problem.
No, I'll shrink it like that. That's perfect.
I can make the
That's
copy.
it. No, that's good. You're
Yeah.
perfect.
That's okay.
You look fantastic.
Perfect. All right. Okay. So yeah.
That's the currency. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect. Well, first, I mean, thank you all for coming. It's kind of it's a bit awkward because I have my screen in front of me, so it's kind of hard to see you all. But so yeah, thank you for coming today. That's really great. Always happy to see new faces, and so today basically we're gonna be talking about MongoDB and about REST APIs. So we're gonna create our own small REST API, and we're gonna connect it to our MongoDB server. So you're gonna need a couple of things to to go through this Codelab. So I mean, know that you have a choice. You can either follow the Codelab with me, or you can do it on your own later, because we're gonna be sharing the GitHub repository with you. So it's going to be shared on Twitter, it's going to be shared on Meetup as well, so if you want to do it yourself on your own, at home, you can do that as well. That's completely fine. So yeah, what we're going to and then we're going to move on to another Codelab, which is React. So last month, or maybe 3 weeks ago, we had a first React Codelab. and so that was with Rosano, and he was supposed to do the second one today, but he could not attend. So I'm left with his code, and I have to talk to you guys. So good thing I know a thing or two about React. So yeah, that should be fine. I'm Julian. I'm a co-organizer at the Google Developers Group Galway, and I'm also kind of a speaker. I come back kind of often to talk about things, and I love a couple of things. I love some Google products and some other techs that I really enjoy practicing. Like Firebase is one product that I really love. I think they're great, and I really love projects like Vue.js and things like that, and everything that touches really to web technologies, but also to programming in general, like TensorFlow and machine learning. That's great topics as well. So I guess we're gonna start with the first part, so the MongoDB and REST API part. So MongoDB, let's start with that. Anyone has used maybe MongoDB in the past? Yeah, one or two, I think. That's good. Because this event is a dev talk, it's not going to be like me speaking all the time. Like the goal is really to have a conversation around the technology, and obviously I'm here to give some answers, but like if you want to interject and maybe say stuff that you've learned by practicing, or maybe case studies that you've encountered in your job, well, you can. And so yeah, feel free to like have a conversation, chat anytime. If you want to add something, that's no problem. So yeah, MongoDB. So it's a NoSQL database, and my first question is kind of so is everybody aware of the difference between a SQL database and a NoSQL database? Yeah, maybe the fact that SQL is not in one, right? That's probably one thing. So yeah, the thing is, so NoSQL is relying a lot on I/O operations. So it's going to be a document-based API, document-based database instead of a SQL database. So it means that each object stored in the database is stored in a separate document, and the database, when queried, will go through documents and read them, and then output the result of that query. When it needs to write something new, well, it will create another document, and that means that it's relying a lot on disk operations, so on I/O. And the cool thing about it is that if you run a server using a bunch of SSDs, well, those operations are very fast. So the reason why it's used a lot today is because of real-time operations. The same way Node.js is very handy when it comes to real-time stuff, because it's event-based, and because it is running on one thread, but it's running in an event loop, so you can have a billion operations running at the same time. It's just going to be queued in the event loop, and at some point it will be processed. Well, MongoDB is kind of the same. It can be, and so it goes very well with Node.js. And if you are building something in real time, so it could be analytics, or it could be a chat application, for example. Well, that's perfect. You should probably pair Node.js with MongoDB, and that would be a very nice setup. Social media as well. Like a bunch of people are using that combo. And if you heard about the mean stack or the MERN stack, so using Angular or React, well, that stands for MongoDB Express, Angular and Node, or React and Node. So basically, it's a very strong setup when it comes to applications, modern applications, and real-time environment. So yeah, that's and so the cool thing about MongoDB is the fact that it can scale horizontally instead of scaling vertically only for SQL. So if you have a SQL server, the only thing that you can do is to get a bigger, like more disk and more CPU power and more memory, and that's pretty much anything like you can do. You need to have like one super powerful machine where your DB is, and then you can run your query on it, and you'll be fine. But if you need to upgrade your machine, it means that this machine needs to be taken down and then rebooted. Even if you're in the cloud, you can need to do that. The only kind of alternate scenario that you can think of is replicating your database on another server, shutting off the first server and then starting a new one, and then you have a seamless transition. So that's one way of doing it. But the thing is like it's quite expensive, and it's not like SQL is the best solution when you have loads of data to query, or when you use complex queries as well. MongoDB is not as great when it comes to complex queries or queries on loads of data. So if you're trying to aggregate tons of things, well, it's clearly not the best thing to use. But if you're trying to do things fast and to read a bunch of small documents, well, that's what you should pick. So that's why, for example, BigQuery is running on SQL, and other things like Firebase database, real-time database, are run on on real-time databases such as MongoDB. So yeah, that's one thing to know. So Node.js, MongoDB can be scaled horizontally instead. So it means that it can be, we can start a bunch of different servers, MongoDB servers, and they can be orchestrated by one made server that will kind of load balance requests and queries on multiple servers at the same time. So it means that data can be replicated between servers. So if you take the example of Cassandra, which is another NoSQL database, they use cluster, so they can have like one cluster with 3 machines replicating like all data and bouncing between them requests, and they can be load balanced. But then another cluster can have another set of data, and that means that if one machine at some point goes down, well, the other 2 will have the same data and can just take the load. And that will be fine. So that's a very nice setup to have, and that's a setup that you can actually have when it comes to SQL. So yeah. Now, I think that for the introduction of MongoDB, that's pretty much what you need to know really. And then so we're gonna start with REST APIs. So this one is, so who has used REST API before? Yeah, probably everyone, because, and who's built one? Okay, that's cool. So REST APIs, they're kind of fun because the classic thing to say is that there are no standards when it comes to building a REST API. And there are no specs or anything, and you can do it the way you want. And that's not really true, because even though there are no like set in stone specs for building a REST API, there are other very well established documentations for example, how to use HTTP statuses. And there is a status, there is the right status for everything. And the thing is, when you look at even big REST APIs, very well-known REST APIs, they don't always return the right status, and that's one example. Like for example, on Instagram, creating a post returns a 200, but a created resource should return 201, because that's the right HTTP status. So yeah, there are little things like that that are very interesting. But a REST API, well, I guess everyone knows here, but just to come back to it. So let's start with how the path to an API should work. And so at the very base of your path should be maybe /API or not. I mean, if you run on something that's like a subdomain that's called API dot and then your domain name, well, that's fine. You don't really need the /API. But then the second part or the first part should be the version number of your API. That's very important because something that is not in the spec but that needs to be implemented is you cannot change the REST API. You cannot change it just on the go like this. One day you decide, yeah, I'm gonna change the schema of that object of the object that's returned, and I'm gonna remove stuff and put other stuff in it, and then hope that everyone's gonna be happy with it. Because I mean, if people are using your API and if at some point you're removing data and they use it, well, their front end will probably be broken at some point. So that's very bad practice. And the guys at Instagram, they don't know about it, so they decided to change it a bunch of times. So yeah, you should version your APIs. That's a very good thing to do. And then, so the next part of the path would be the name of the resource that you're trying to access. So it could be /users or /tasks. And so then you use the right method to either get, post, put, or patch or delete data or resources. So let's say that I use a get on /users, I should get the list of users. If I post on /users, it will be to create a new user. If I cannot put on /users, I cannot patch on /users, and then if you go to /user /a specific user, then you can put, patch, and you can delete a resource. So that's how REST should work. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the introduction. I mean, anyone wants to add something, or maybe something interesting they have to say about MongoDB or REST APIs, like any funny things? No. All right. Well. Yeah, I didn't include it there, but I actually wrote an article on Medium about how to write a good REST API and the do's and don'ts, and there are a couple of funny things there. So I'll probably add the link somewhere in the repository, or maybe on Twitter or Meetup. But yeah, like for example, a funny thing is returning an error 500. That's kind of funny because it means internal error. It means that basically your code broke, and that your server kind of crashed. And well, internal error is never a good thing to return. So yeah.
You know the HTTP error 418?
418. Is that a timeout?
I'm a teapot.
It is.
It is. It was an April Fool's joke because where they wrote, one of the companies where they were coming up with the standards. They had the first uses was they had a webcam pointing at the coffee machine, so you'd know when you were out of coffee. And then eventually they made the coffee machine accessible via API.
Yeah.
And if they also then had the tea brewer, and if you asked the tea brewer to make you coffee, it would give you a 418 I'm a teapot.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what they do for standards.
That's just brilliant. Well, I mean, it's very useful HTTP code to have. If you don't know what to return, well, might as well. So yeah, I guess where we can probably start, that's more Codelab with MongoDB and REST APIs. So
Before you start, does anybody want to grab tea, coffee, or biscuits?
Yes.
Now's a good time.
This is a great time to
Yeah,
get coffee.
Yeah.
that's good.
Julian, do you want coffee?
Yeah, I'm going with coffee actually.
What are you going to be coding in Visual Studio Code?
Yes. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. I don't know what you're using, guys. Code as well, maybe?
Yeah, Code or Atom.
Yeah.
Just use Atom.
Oh yeah, Atom is fine. Like I was using Notepad++. I went to Sublime, and I went to Atom for a week, and then I went to Code when it was in beta. So yeah, I kind of went through them all, and they're all really great. But the only thing that's cool with Code, I think, is just the fact that the terminal is embedded in the program directly, so you can like code and check like the terminal as well. It is pretty good. I kind of like it. Plus, yeah, there are a bunch of people using Code, and the community is great. It has great integration with Docker as well. But I don't know from what you're using, maybe, because I know that you're a DevOps too. So
Docker Compose, Kubernetes.
So do you write code on Visual Code as well?
I stick to Sublime.
Sublime, okay.
Sublime for terminal.
Okay. Well, should give it a try. Like the integration with Docker is actually really great. You can have your containers listed directly in code, and you can start them
After working with Eclipse and Java in college, I don't want to use a heavy IDE ever again. And we also use Unity at work, and Unity will take a solid 3 hours sometimes to do. So just no. No, something like that. That's because you use multiple different versions, because you have a new one every year. And then if someone in the office is using 2019.2.5 and I'm using 0.4, it has to re-import. And if it's a game could be, I think our reach was 20 gigabytes, which GitHub kicked us out for, and Bitbucket refuses us to have a deep history. So it's now hosted on our own server. So there's lots of problems.
Visual Studio Code is the only IDE my team's been able to agree on for the past 5 years. It's very interesting.
I don't find much difference between Atom and Visual Studio Code. It's easy to switch.
Yeah.
Visual Studio Code.
Yeah. As long as no one's using Vim. Or Five. They're really cool, but they need so much customization. No one else can ever use it again.
It's whatever you're comfortable with. But, I mean, essentially, when I'm a contractor, so I end up going to quite a few different clients. And there's always that feeling when you go to a different client, they say we mandate you using IDE or Eclipse or something like that. And that's wrong anyway. You should use whatever your code base should support. Not dependent on the IDE. But then it's this sensitive box where you can't do all the things you normally do. You know, there's always a steep learning curve initially to switch to a new IDE. Eventually,
Yeah. Or suddenly using Mac. Or vice versa. Just
Oh, you get one idea. Actually, all across the instruments, it's so perfect.
So yeah, I had actually a quick question on the languages that you would be using like on a regular basis, or like what would be your main language?
It actually sounds like most of you do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went around earlier and everybody's doing everything.
Okay.
Everybody studies JavaScript though, right? And either React or Angular or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah. I was just wondering if maybe we had software people more than web people, because like some of them use different languages, like maybe they're gonna if you're going in C++ it's a tiny bit different. But yeah, should be okay then. So yeah, to start with the Codelab, so the first thing is you can read it on the screen probably. You can access this URL on GitHub and you can follow the Codelab. Everything is listed there. Everything you need. So obviously you need Node.js, you need Git and MongoDB. So essentially you just need Git to pull the repository and to use it. So yeah, the first step is basically to pull our this repository and to run npm install, and from there you should be able to start coding. So the first step is to create the REST API. So we have defined a couple of things, because that's what you should do when you start writing an API. So we're going to use Express.js. So it's going to be running on Node.js. We're going to use Express.js for our web framework. Our API will use JSON as the default format. We will use JSON web tokens to secure our API. The authentication tokens will be stored in a cookie or sent in the request body or query string. And the JWTs, so standing for JSON web tokens, will be once encoded will contain the user ID. So that's how we're gonna know where the token comes from and who's the owner. So yeah. So basically, the first thing that we're gonna put in our index.js file for our Node.js application is we're gonna create a simple API secret. So obviously, don't create it like this, but because like that's not great. You can create a private key, a generated private key, or you can maybe generate a secret string, but you can store it in an environment variable, or maybe like a protected file. That would be best. We're gonna run the API on port 3000. We initialize Express body parser, so we're gonna use body parser to parse our requests and to be able to read requests that are made either using a query string or URL encoded or JSON. We're going to use cookie parser so we can read our tokens, and we're going to use JWT to generate new tokens. We initialize our API using Express. We set up a static route to get our assets. So we're gonna have a singular set for this example. It's gonna be an index.jl.html file. So we instantiate body parser to handle your encoded requests, but also to handle JSON. We parse cookies, and then our routes will be listed just below. Finally, we start our API by listening on port 3000. So we'll implement the security gate, kind of the kind of security part of our API. So that will be running at the very top, and every request will run through that gate. So this gate will basically look at the requests. We'll have a look and see if a token is available. If a token is available, we're gonna verify the token using our API secrets. And if the verification fails at this point, we're gonna return 401 unauthorized, and we're gonna return code error, invalid token, message, invalid token. So that should be the format of the most simple error when it comes to an API. So it should be composed of code and message. And code is just a unique identifier that is more useful for you than for the user, really. But it's very handy when you have a big API and when you have a bunch of devs working on it or using it, that they can just contact you and say, yeah, the error code is this one. So you can locate the error and say, okay, something went wrong there. And then a message, so the message should be where you explain the error and exactly how, in a concise way, but also sometimes how to fix it. It's also useful to implement something like a message that is helpful and says, yeah, you can fix the error by doing that, or that thing is wrong, you can fix it. So that, yeah, that's basically it. If everything, so if the request is not using a token, we go to the next route. And if it's using a token, well, then it will be verified, and if it goes through, it means that the token was verified successfully, so it will go to the next route. First thing that we're going to implement is the user authentication. So we're going to do it kind of in a OAuth way. So we're going to have an endpoint to create a profile or to create a new user, and an endpoint to log in and to basically get a token. So yeah, the first part is we're gonna use bcrypt to encrypt our passwords, because we don't want to store passwords in clear in our database. We are not Facebook. So we're gonna use validator, and so that is only to filter our requests and to make sure that they have the right parameters, and that people are not trying to pass functions or malicious code in our requests. And we're going to use short ID. That's only to create IDs for our users, and we're going to use MongoDB or a Mongo client actually to generate a new client and run requests. So the first part of this route is just to validate the query coming in. So that in this case is the creation of a new account. So it's going to have a simple thing: name, email, and password. We're going to just check if the body is valid. So we have a bunch of different parameters. The module I'm using here is Node Input Validator. It's actually a pretty good module if you're looking to do validation or schemaless validation. So because if you're using things like Mongoose or implementation of schema for MongoDB, you can directly check if the body of your request is corresponds to the schema that you defined for that specific resource. So we're going to initiate the connection to MongoDB. So initiate a new client using this line of code. So that's very straightforward. So we're going to be using the database URL, and that is defined at the very top of the file. So that's your URL to your MongoDB server. Then we're going to connect. So if you are you familiar with async, await, and all the new features of JavaScript? ES6, ES7, yeah, all good. So yeah, basically, so I'm going to be using async await here just because it makes the code a lot cleaner. We're not gonna be lost in a bunch of then and catches. So yeah, basically I connect to the client. I'll wait for the client to connect. Then I access my database. Note that if your database is not yet created, it will create it for you. So yeah, that is fine. You don't have to take care of this. Then we're gonna check our users and get all our users with the same email than the email used in our request. So just to check if there's not another account already created with that email. If there's no other account using that email, when we can we can continue and process our code. We create a new ID. We hash our password. So here I use the salt that basically that will run 10 times. And then I insert my user in the database using that simple method and passing the different parameters that were in the request. So like for the MongoDB part, it is very straightforward. I mean, to get documents, you can use the find method, and then you're gonna get a multiple results, and then you can use the insert one method to insert a new document. So yeah, the simplicity of MongoDB is actually pretty interesting. So the system of collections and documents is very easy to pick up. So then we are gonna create a new token for that user. So using JWT, so JSON Web Token, we're gonna encode the user ID within the token using our API secret, and this token will expire in 7 days. So we're gonna reflect that on the token that we'll be creating. So the token will be stored in a cookie called token, and it will expire in 7 days as well. We return a status 201 because a user was created. If the user already exists, we return 409 already exists. That's the right HTTP status. 404 if the user was not found, and 400 if there is an invalid parameter. And then we are going to look at the login part. So in the login part, the user passes an email and password. We are going to validate the body of that request. We are going to connect to MongoDB again, to our database, and then we are going to find one user using this email. So the find one method will only return one user. If this method fails, it will generate an error. So it will go into the catch block down below. So if a user is found, we compare the password passed in the request with the password that we have encrypted in our database. And if the passwords don't match, we return an error. Otherwise, we will do the same thing that we did at the creation of the user. We'll create a token, we'll register a cookie, and we'll return a JSON response. So 200 by default. So then we're gonna give a simple way for people to access their profiles. So I used here. So that's part of the non-conventional thing, the things that are not really mapped or written in specs. I like to use the /me resource. So if you access the /users, for example, and then you use the /me, it will return your profile. And if, for example, you have a /tasks and you use the /me, it will return your tasks. I find this shorthand very handy. Especially when you write applications using external APIs, it's really nice to have that. So and also the /me will simply get the token. Well, actually, our user, if we remember well, up top, our user object was stored in the request objects directly. So when you decode a JSON Web Token, you get back your original object containing your user ID, and then we put that object in the request object, and we move on with the request. And so that user object can be found later on.
Can you guys, I have to ask, you okay if we post on Twitter pictures of what's going on here?
Yeah.
No problem. I have to ask. Yeah. Yeah. All good. Okay.
Cool. So yeah, I find this method of creating the user object up top and then to be able to reuse it at any point in any routes below very handy, because well, you can access it anytime. It's already there for you, and the only thing that you have to check at this point is, do I have a user parameter in my request object or not? If I do have a a user object, well, then I can use it to get something or identify, well, basically know that my user is authenticated, and that I can check if he has the credential, the right credential to access this route. So in the case of /me, I just have to check if the user is connected. If the user is not connected, I will return a 401 unauthenticated, and tell the user that the user must be logged in order to do that request. Otherwise, I will just connect to my database. I will retrieve the profile corresponding to the user ID associated with the token that was passed, and I will return that profile, and that's all I'm gonna do. So that's a very small code and kind of an effective way of doing it. Then we're gonna create a similar route using so the /users, and then the dynamic route with a parameter at the end ID. So the only difference here is that this route is only available to admin users. So in the same way we created the token, adding our user ID to our token, we could add an admin boolean to that token, and then retrieve the information later. So when a user with a token with the admin boolean is trying to make that request to that endpoint, I'm going to be able to say he has the admin boolean set to true. He has access to that part of the API. Let's proceed. So that's also a good way of doing it, and that is how Google encrypts tokens. They encrypt permissions directly in their token, so that when you access an API, they know straight away, without checking a database, that you have the right permission to use that resource. So that's very efficient, because you have one less query to do on your API and on your database. So that's really cool. So yeah, for this route, the only difference is that I'm going to use the parameter that was passed in the route, so the ID part, and I'm going to retrieve the user based on their ID using the last ID parameter, and I'm going to return their profile. So then if you follow the Codelab and wrote this code in your favorite ID, well, you can run it, and then you can check out the routes and check out that everything works with the simple front-end page that I made. So it's very basic. You have a couple of forms, and you can create an account. You can log in, and you can check your own profile. And so So that's very simple. It's a very simple start of an API, but that's something that you can extend yourself by just doing the same thing but for other resources. And just by having this part of the code, you already have a pretty strong base for your API because you already have security implemented. You know how to implement different credential levels. So here we used an admin boolean to know if the user is an admin or not. But what you could do is use a number instead and say, well, if you're below this number, you have access, and if you're not, well, you don't have access, and then change that level. For example, the super admin will be level 0, and then we're gonna go up. And that's a very easy way to check if you have access or not to a resource. So yeah, that's and so you can check your code. You can use the simple front end that I made, and if everything works well, then you're fine to write more code and create a bigger API. So that's for the MongoDB and the REST API part. So I added a couple of links at the end of the Codelab where you can find our Twitter, our meetup page. You can join us on Discord. So that's where we chat and the community interacts in real time. And you can also join our forum, our discourse forum at forum.gdg-galway.com. It's a very nice place to be, and if you're not already there, you should definitely join because we post more resources, more tutorials and stuff like that there, and we have discussions about technologies and what we use. So yeah, it's a great place that we're trying to build. So yeah, and we're gonna be switching to our React part. So the React part sent by Rossano. So that is on our GDG GitHub. So by the way, if you want to check out our GDG Galway GitHub, you can. We have a couple of Codelabs already listed there, and we did things with AI APIs. We did things with Firebase, so some cool stuff to check out there. So yeah, the React. So that's the second part of the React introduction. So Rossano gave us a couple of notes to follow. So if you want to follow with us,
Just check that does everybody have access to find the
link to Rossano's GitHub is on the meetup page. So.
yeah, on the meetup page. You should be able to see it on the screen as well if you want to copy the URL.
They have bionic eyes. Can
Yeah.
from that distance on your screen.
Is it readable?
No.
No, it's not.
That's sarcasm.
That's too bad. Well, you can go to github.com/gdg-galway, and you will find it there.
So far, so good for everybody. Like, is anything new? Or is it all something you already know?
It's fairly new to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the struggles that I had was like when you talked about the user being authenticating, then you had access it to that user in other routes.
Yeah.
I started getting curious, and then I lost you. How the flow of that user was making it into other routes.
Yeah, so basically the cool thing about the request object is that it carries on like from the top of your Express app to the bottom. So it means that if you change it and if you add stuff to it, you will find the same stuff down below. So if you go to the next route, you'll find the same object with your modifications. So you can add stuff in there, and you'll be able to find the same thing later on in other routes. So that's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, it's really handy.
Yeah.
having
So it's-
access to that state.
So it's session-based storage based on cookie lookup, and that's all going on in the background.
Yeah, yeah. Here we're using cookies, but like some APIs will use sessions, or it's like slightly different, and because most of the time the thing is, sessions with REST APIs are they're kind of weird because it is handy to have a token that you send with your request, and then it is checked, verified, and at each request, and to not keep a session up for simple reasons, because like if your token is expired, you can get a new one automatically, but when your session expires, you have to log in again, and there are no easy mechanism to start the same session. And when you have tokens, most of the time you have a route to refresh your token so that you can carry on using a similar token, and that's handy. So yeah, that's why most APIs today will use a cookie and tokens. And yeah, that's
When you say most APIs, which ones do you
like
have in mind?
yeah, like for example, if you use Twitter API, Facebook API, when you use Instagram, or maybe the Medium API, or most API that will use OAuth as a method of authentication. So yeah, you'll find that pretty much everywhere now, and JSON Web Tokens are used in most of them too. So yeah, everyone is pretty much using the same way to create tokens. So yeah, no problem.
Why use the short ID?
Yeah.
Instead of the Mongo has its own ID already.
Yeah. So different things. The first thing is.
This is the question because I don't think we hear very well. So just repeat the question.
Yeah, sure. So the question was, why do we use short IDs instead of the generic ID given by Mongo when some resource is created? So that's for a couple of reasons. So the IDs, the IDs generated by MongoDB have so first you can rewrite them, and you can pass your own IDs. If I remember correctly, you can actually overwrite them, and you can change them using your own IDs. But they have also they can be used as a way to access. They have a certain power, and just because there are different ways to query them and to find Mongo objects using those IDs. And I think that it's just first, short IDs are handier because they're shorter, and it's kind of it's nicer to read, but also I guess also for security reasons, having a public ID that you share publicly, and then a private ID for your database to find documents and stuff is probably the safest way to approach things. Yeah, so yeah, that's why I would use short IDs instead. Yeah. Anyone
Do you
has?
agree with that?
Yeah.
Because, you know,
So they are far too long because sometimes you have user slash account, user slash ID slash account slash ID slash blog post slash ID, and it does get horrible. But I guess the only reason I use them is they already have an index, so they're fast to query.
Yeah.
And the index, the IDs, even though they're not sequential, they do increase like the last few numbers on it are a timestamp. So they are naturally sorted by creation date. So it's kind of handy if that's your main query.
Yeah.
It'll always be in that order.
Yeah.
But yeah, for readability and security, some sort of hash or separate ID would be good. Like same as for a blog post, you'd have a some sort of underscored tag name.
Yes.
For the pretty name you display by.
Yeah.
And then the ID by which you edit stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, like also for readability when it comes to URLs, it's also like kind of nice to have a short thing instead of a long user ID that is taking a bunch of space. So especially if you're not dealing with users but more with blog posts and stuff like that, yeah, you can't really have a 48 digits string.
I think the other thing is it's in your domain.
Yeah.
If you type the key on the database, then you're locking yourself into that technology as far as the database is concerned. If you want to say refer to an article way in the future and use an ID to refer to it, you need something that potentially outlasts your database.
Yeah.
You might move on beyond that. So it's always a good idea to have your own domain of key. You then have to manage it, as you say, you have to create it sequentially and choose the order, choose the format and everything.
Yeah.
It's usually a worthwhile decision to take early on.
Yeah, that is actually true. The sequential part is very important too, because I think like for security reasons, I think that it's always good to have randomized IDs, just so that you can't guess what IDs are taken and what other IDs are not. And, so if they're randomized, it's very hard to actually find the profile and to try to hack into it.
Yeah, the user won't know what database you're using if you're not using sequential numbers for SQL or the long 24 hexadecimal string from Mongo.
Yeah. So
there's one really annoying detail. If you ever JSON stringify the MongoDB underscore ID, it actually becomes object.
Yes.
Underscore ID equals an object containing ID. And
Yeah.
that ruins all queries.
Yeah, that is true.
In there, obviously.
Yeah, with a big question mark. Why is it not working? Yeah, no, that's yeah. So yeah, for that React part. So last week we have started with a very simple example of how to create a React to-do app. So Rossano showed us. Tony, you have?
no, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, no?
2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, sorry, 3 weeks, or two or three. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So 2 or 3 weeks ago, we went through a simple tutorial with Rossano to create a simple to-do app, and he couldn't finish everything that he had to say about React. So we left on the site a couple of things. So you can follow the Codelab with me on this URL. But yeah, we left it at we were talking about how to initialize properties and how states are managed in React. And we were talking about the mechanism in React that is basically properties or props are passed down to components, and then they go up again using a store. So we can use something like Redux or stores like this to manage our states. So that's something that is proper to React, and that is making it very efficient, because that's how React knows what part to update and what part to re-render, because you have to go through that process of setting states and basically sending them back to the store to identify that there was a change made on this property. So yeah, that's what is proper to React in terms of state management. So we went through where we started talking about CSS, the fact that the CSS is kind of scoped on an element basis, so you can write your CSS for a particular element, and it will not be shared with other elements in your application, and that is making it very easy to compartmentalize your application and to put some people on a certain component, and they're only going to be working on a part of the application while another team is working on another component, and that's how you can manage projects at very large scale by just associating people with components instead of associating people with larger resources like an entire page or entire application. Maybe it's also very handy when it comes to DevOps, because you don't have to worry about merging all the time. If there are only 2 or 3 people working on a component, well then they only have to ask themselves how to merge this, and they can ask questions directly between them instead of managing 20 people and to kind of try to know how to merge a file properly. So yeah, at this point you don't need like a main or many project maintainers to merge code. You can just it's much more organic, and you can just talk to each other and basically merge your code this way. So that's why component-based applications are very nice to work with, especially at a larger scale.
In the last session, how far did Rossano get in this?
So he stopped at the state management. So I think that was so he just finished this part, the part about using IDs and properties, and he showed us that part. Yeah.
So I just went really quickly through it, and at that point you have something that looks like the end, but no buttons are clickable, and it's kind of just text, right? Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
We haven't really done the to-do part. We're just on the front end. I just want to make sure I'm in the right place, because I just caught up really quickly while you were talking.
Okay. So.
Careful, they might know more about the topic than you do.
Well.
Okay.
Did you so you said you did you follow the previous tutorial with Rossano, and you went up to a certain part?
No, I just started.
Okay, you just started there. Okay. yeah. So well.
Like, are you starting from the start of this, or are you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
continuing from?
No, I'm continuing from where Rossano left his tutorial basically. So
So was everybody able to get to that point?
Tried to.
yeah.
Where did you get caught?
Huh?
How far did you get?
I was trying to install MongoDB, in fact.
Okay.
Still catching up.
Yeah, that could be a bottleneck. And everybody else was starting today, right? Yeah. Anybody hit any snags? Just me.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Okay. Back to you, Drew.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's true that for those who weren't there during the last tutorial, it won't be easy to catch up. So I'm not sure about how to approach this. I should probably give a quick recap and maybe continue from there. So we started using React, initializing our application using by pulling our repository and using an npm install to create our application. So I think this tutorial at the very beginning, Rossano used the create React app to generate his project. So yeah, if you want to follow the tutorial, that's probably how you should do it. So you should use the npx part with create React app, and then give a name to your application. So that's the part that you would need to do. Then Rossano went through the list of files that were available and went on to creating his first component. So in his first component, he just initialized a header. He puts in his basic layout for the application, where the list of tasks is going to be a footer, a header. He went on to talking about states and creating a list of to-dos, giving them IDs and a description, a complete boolean to know what task is completed, and talked about how components were rendered, and talking about JSX, which is the sub language that React uses to compile to HTML. So basically, it's a mix between HTML and JavaScript directly within a JavaScript tag. So you can, using JSX, you can basically write HTML or kind of HTML, something that looks very much like it, directly in your JavaScript file without using any quotes or anything. And then you can just write JavaScript code in that. So an example would be this block here, where you can see that we're not using class as a property. We're using class name because in JSX, class as a keyword is already taken. So you have to use class name instead. And then directly in our kind of HTML code, so in our JSX code, we can include JavaScript's code, and you can see it there, for example, in this line highlighted there, that we are mapping through our list of to-dos and we are outputting the description of each to-do in our document. Oh yeah, the meme. The meme is completely fine. Perfect. So yeah, you might run into the key error. So keys need, when you loop through objects, you have to know that in React every object has a different ID, and so it means that no objects can have the same IDs. And so if you are using a certain key, the same key for different objects, it will return an error. So you really need to set that key property to something unique. And that's why Rossano, when he initialized his to-do list, used a unique ID key using date.now and incrementing it. That's one quick way of doing it.
Can you choose any of the data field as a key? Or
sorry?
If you have something, if you have whatever the data that you are rendering, right? So whatever is available on the list, can we use that as a key, or do we have to generate something?
So you don't like if you're sure, like for example, if you're using slugs in articles, like on WordPress, and you have that dashed name for the article, you can use that as a unique ID because you know that it's not going to be there twice, and so you can use it as a unique ID. That's fine. You don't need to generate something specific like a hash or something like that. You can use slugs or anything unique.
As far as it is guaranteed to be a unique
Yeah.
key, then we can use that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, for the viewers, the question was, do we need to generate an ID, a specific ID for our different components or objects, or can we reuse something that we know to be unique instead, like slugs, for example, in a WordPress article? And the answer is yes. It is fine to use anything that is unique. It doesn't have to be an ID per se. So yeah, here Rossano is running through a couple of examples, so telling us why we shouldn't use similar elements without giving them a key property, and he's giving them the solution to create elements with a key property. So here is the restyling part I was talking about earlier about scoping CSS. So that's very handy. Know that you can also create global CSS in React, so that you can have an external script or CSS file that is not scoped, and then a scoped CSS file or CSS part for your component. So conditional rendering, we started to talk about it at the last session, and then we kind of stopped at this point. So if you have a boolean, like well, we do here, we have the completed boolean for each of our to-dos. We can use that and the ternary operator, so the question mark and column, to display one HTML component or another. So here Rossano chose to display completed in a small tag if the task was completed, and a to-do if it wasn't. So that's a very quick way to render a list of tasks, and I think that you can even see the results here. You can see that he kept this piece of code, and you see the name of the task and completed or to do. He added some CSS as well, so that's what we can see. To do is in red and complete is in green. So then that's the part that we didn't do. We didn't have the chance to do, and that's the part about updating a state. So the goal is to add a button and to make this to create a function on this button so that a certain to-do will be marked as completed, and that new state will be updated within React so that React knows that it has to re-render that component. So to do that, we use we create a non-click method, and then we use our handle toggle method, and we're gonna pass our the ID of our to-do to kind of find what to-do we're talking about.
So where does the handle toggle method go?
So yeah, the handle toggle goes into the app object that we initialized up there. So here you can add an extra method. So you have the render method here, and you can initialize handle to do the same way.
So like just after the render method closes, but then right after?
Yeah, exactly. And if we go back to the code there, so the handle toggle method takes an ID and outputs. So let's run through the code quickly. It copies the list of to-dos. It runs through the different to-dos, and and when it finds the to-do with the right ID, it changes the boolean completed from what it was to the opposite. So if it was, it's a simple toggle. If it was false, it's true. If it's true, it's now false. And then we use the setState method, which is a core React method, to update the state and to tell a component to re-trigger the render method. So Rossano created a counter component as well to count the number of to-dos. So that's a new component. So you will need to create that new component the same way the app component was set up, and just by basically doing that method, or like you create that counter.js file, you can create that counter, taking in props as any React component, and then using that prop to display the total. So I think
This is a new JavaScript file.
yeah, it is a new JavaScript file called counter.js, and that will basically be imported to be reused in our application. So on here, we can see how Rossano used it. So we can see the same list of to-dos that we saw earlier, and then he added his counter object there, and passing in as a property or a prop total, which is going to be the length of the array to-dos. And so React will automatically watch props, and when a prop is updated and passed down to from a parent object, it will automatically trigger the render method and update the component dynamically.
What's a stateless component exactly?
The what?
A stateless, like it's
Oh yeah, the stateless. Yeah. So
can just defer state and stateless.
yeah, so a stateless component is basically a component without that that doesn't have to do that the whole set state part. So it will never update the global state of React of your application. It will just take in data through props and it will just render them. It will never like update anything. So that's a stateless component. And for example, counter.js is a stateless component. It only takes in props to render them. It will never have any logic behind. So yeah. And
Just while you keep an eye on the time.
yeah, and
How
we're
are we doing?
well, we're that's the conclusion now. We
That's
are
the conclusion. Okay.
yeah, we're done with that React Codelab about creating to-dos. So Rosano didn't do the delete to-do and add a new to-do. I think he wants he wants.
That's the thing. That's that what we can do here. I guess that's what he wanted us to know.
No. That's he just updated the.
He says feel free to implement them by yourself and then compare our solutions. Which is,
Yeah. Well.
This is what is encouraged here. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's what we can do. I guess if you're done with the tutorial, that's what you can do by yourself and explore. But I guess we can try to.
do it together.
Yeah, we can try to do it together.
It's a 2-hour session. If you want to try to do the delete function and the
Add
to-do,
add a new to do. That.
well, we can spare more time and do it if you want.
Counter.
Counter, yeah. You can both.
Yeah, you've got create the so you've got to create the counter.js and then import it.
Ah, you're right. I didn't know what. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'll let you go through the Rosano's code before maybe continuing on the new functions.
I don't know, it's up to you guys. You decide if you want to spend some time looking at one of the functionalities, like the delete one would be a cool one to explore.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. So
We can.
Can you recommend any good resources on React apart from Googling React?
Yeah.
References?
So
Anyone you'd recommend?
so yeah, there are a couple of good resources that Rosano listed at the end there, but like
Oh, they're
so
at the bottom of the
yeah.
okay.
S-
Cool.
So, but there are a couple of good resources. Like for example, you can find React tutorials and how to get started with it, and to go from beginner to advanced directly on the React website. They have a very good beginner program to get into React with very simple to advanced tutorials. So
I'm going to ask a really silly question here.
yeah, sure.
I don't come from a no background
Yeah.
at all. Can you use React in, say, like some other container? Like, if you can use like React.js in like a standard Java server?
Uh,
I actually have a React app running on GitHub pages, so it's
So it's just JavaScript.
Compared to Java HTML, just the JavaScript, it bundles, right?
You-
It just bundles and you serve the bundle in a static server.
Yeah.
you could, well, I mean, you could serve a React application in your Java application, like as a
As static.
Yeah, yeah,
resources,
yeah.
maybe,
and that will work good.
But what is the standard way of deploying in React app? Is it like you serve the bundle using a static server, just like you have
Yeah. It's you just need a static server, and so basically React will be you'll have the compiled files, and that you can just put on a static server, and they will be served as any web application. There will only be like HTML and JavaScript files. That's it.
And I noticed, I was having a little look through the Git repository, and there's a test, React app-test.js as well, which seems to be some kind of testing framework. Do you have any experience of using that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, the test. So for React, I'm actually not sure. That's probably that would be more Rosano's domain, but or area of expertise. But like knowing other frameworks, the test folder, like as implemented in most frameworks, is a replica of what is in your components folder. So if you have, you will have to replicate everything that is in your components folder in your test folder, and that test folder will be used to run a node function that will go through, that will use like particular libraries. So I'm not sure what React uses.
It's integrated with just JS.
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes
So can you do like a service on your DOM that's created and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And go through like exercising your UI.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you can basically like run a test command, and it will output like a report of everything that is good or not when it runs, and it will test your components. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Where does the code handle toggle go exactly? Handle toggle, that's about the content component.
Yeah. So it's you can add it below the render method. So if we look back at our code there, in your app component, you can just add it below,
Okay.
and that will be fine. Yeah.
Do you want to run the? Do you want to try to make the delete button? I don't know. How long would it take?
Well, the delete button is pretty.
Let's see some code.
Let's.
I mean, we've seen code, but we haven't seen action code.
Action. Dang.
Say action script for those who have tried it. Those younger use that, and it's gone now. So I'm completely obsolete.
So. Okay. Oh well. Yeah, the Rosano's code already implements the submit and delete functions. So let's not look at it.
You might be able to check out before you please commit to get.
Yeah. So let's see our comments.
Okay, so in app.js you have to make sure to import them. So you export this counter, and in JS you use counter at the very top of the file that you import. Yeah, you can see that it's export as default, so you can just import as whatever name.
So you have to find things that works to rename it. Okay.
Oh, the MongoDB now I gave up on that.
Same as app.js, in a string, it's counter.js.
I installed the MongoDB, but this project doesn't compile. There is a problem with Beacon. Is there a problem installing Beacon? Like, do we need something else as well? I see it requires some build tools to install. The other example, sorry, not this one. the MongoDB example.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to run that, and when I do npm install, I'm getting an error to whenever it tries to install bcrypt.
Yeah. You don't have big. Yeah, I can have a look.
I prefer.
Maybe bcrypt is missing from the
Yeah,
export
it's
package.
trying to.
I don't think it's that should be good.
So
Yeah, I think.
and I'm getting the error saying that
I just checked that.
Oh, yeah.
Just
what I did is I saw something on Google and I tried to install this.
Yeah.
Here's like I'm trying to
Even better, here's something
Look, it
somebody
is-
else prepared.
want
That
some
has
grammar.
that style.
Doesn't
I like it. If it was a cooking show, you would just open the fridge.
That's right. The oven, or the oven.
Python.
For some modules will use binaries. So you'll need
That's
some
why
C++
we-
dependencies
Like
or
trying to
sometimes
grab
Python.
it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think
Because
for
it took me 10 minutes to realize that my DNS before this project was running on. I was wondering why it's not showing.
I was getting this
I
error.
was doing a demo
Alright.
for our
So
team,
what I did
so there was
is
about
I
25
included
people
this
there.
documentation.
It's myself and 3 others.
Windows
And it should be
Windows.
running
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
laptop fine, it's
Installed that.
running on
Looks like
colleagues'
it's stuck
fine.
somewhere.
And so colleague number 3 says,
So
"Do you know what?
we need to
Download
install
version
the
9."
Python
So
yeah, for that part, the build
same
But it's
tools
the same.
should make it work because it's a Windows thing specifically. So you need the build tools to be able to run that.
And you'll stand
I said if Python might not have been set
home.
in my
Oh,
environment where
terrible issues with my
Server
internet.
issues.
Terrible internet.
You
But no idea what it was. He's restarted the thing 20 minutes later, it's fine.
is
Of
there
course, it calls.
information
yes.
earlier in the tutorial?
It's always as well like those stupid
here,
little
isn't it?
easy
Yeah,
steps
where
at the very
it's
beginning
always
that you
that's
should
right.
do in your sleep where you fuck
Which you kind of gloss over, you
Exactly.
know they're going to work.
Yeah, exactly. And then one day some really niche error comes up and you're like, I don't know, like this always works.
And in the node,
Or you're in a talk and you
on
assume
the
that
node
everybody
page,
knows how to do something.
yeah, he
And then
says that currently
you
there are
start with the premise
dependencies
that, you know,
support
of
for
course
this
everybody knows how
platform.
to do
So they
this.
say that there are some
And then they say,
dependencies which are
no,
required.
you show us how to do it.
No
It's
jig.
like through.
Yeah.
It's like, what
As well as
happens next?
Python.
Yeah,
And
it's
Kubernetes
there's the
is-
rubber duck test.
yeah, I think
Someone
like
else
if you install the
Windows
Windows,
That's actually
Yeah,
one
the
of those
Windows
fun
build
standards.
tools,
It's
that
standard for
should,
testing what's wrong
that
with your
should
Wi-Fi.
allow
It involves putting one of those
demonstration.
rubber chickens you have for a dog, you know, squeaky toy.
Yeah.
Put that on the router.
Yeah.
And then depending on if it falls off
I
or not, you
think
decide
if I
if you should
remember
reboot it
correctly,
or
there's
not. That's
also
the entire
an
standard. This one of those
for
ISO.
Windows build tools.
Wow.
Again, you have too much time.
So maybe you can try.
Not just too much time, but you know
Sure.
when people say
If the
developers aren't
commands
creative,
work.
they're so
Yeah,
wrong.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just creative in a really weird way.
Mostly in naming projects.
Yeah. What are you talking about? I have like 10 my apps on my computer.
Was one of the templating languages was renamed Pug?
Oh, dear.
Was it handle?
No,
Was it
handlebars and
mustache?
hooks are 2 separate things. Like use handlebars, like use
So,
a hook.
do we have anyone who tried to maybe go further and implement that, delete and add to do features?
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
I got it from the Git repo.
Yeah, that works.
Works.
Yeah.
What else, if we successfully add those two features, what else should go into a to-do app? What would you recommend? What do
Well-
you think needs to go in? I'd like to hear a feature from everybody because I'm just taking notes here at
Should add
this
some
point.
tests.
Add some tests.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's a good part.
That's a very good point. So, Ronnie, what would you add?
I tried to see whether if you add something that has a right angle bracket, whether it all falls apart.
Yeah, yeah, very good,
Yeah.
very good.
Specific step tests as well. What would you add?
To the to app.
Yeah. You don't have to do it. I'm not going to hold you to it. But as an idea of how we could expand.
You can have a login and pull out, save the to-do for particular user.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we can use the other Codelab.
Yeah. You can create few more components.
Oh yeah.
Like a plugin.
Yeah. Once we learn how to use Kotlin at the weekend, we could make a mobile app.
There you go. There you go.
Or you can use React as
As a
Android app as well.
Yeah.
But you have to completely rewrite everything, which is frustrating.
Could have told me that like half an hour ago.
Isn't it that
Keep it scalable.
the React front end like mobile development system uses like your Android input field instead of the HTML input, so you have to swap all of the front end code out, which to me makes no sense because it's front end. So you keep the state logic, which is a
So
different.
is there any kind of templating in React so you can render in different ways?
Well, you can use a simple you can use a simple string as well to render your component. You don't have to use the JSX part, but yeah, that's how they implemented the HTML part in React. They just want to use JavaScript files and that's it. So yeah, that's one way to approach it. But yeah, do you or anyone use maybe different frameworks than React? Could be Angular or maybe a Vue.
I started learning Vue.
I used Vue a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, like not much.
Yeah, I.
But it has some component called Nuxt,
Yes.
Nuxt.js,
Yes.
and it builds everything automatically, so it was like pretty easy task.
Yes.
Just remove and copy paste.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. That's yeah. I went through a couple of frameworks like this, and so React and a bit of Angular and Polymer as well, which is the Google one, which is more like a library than a proper framework. But and then I went on to coding on Vue, which is really great. Like yeah, the comparison is very interesting, and I kind of like some features in some frameworks and other features in others, but it's really more of a preference than anything. But yeah, I kind of at the moment I kind of like Vue and how it's set up. But yeah, some React, some parts in React are also kind of nice, and yeah, I can understand why people would use React in for some things, and we use Angular as well for some others, because like Angular is very handy when it comes to having a huge app and scaling up and having like a large group of people working on it, just because it's very limited in a way, but it's also very well tested and very robust. So the only thing that you can use in Angular are really well tested and most time very secure as well. So yeah, but I mean it's the number of limitations is just huge. So it's not easy to build an Angular app really. Yeah, especially compared to other frameworks. So yeah, anyone interested in maybe using frameworks in the future, or maybe are you maybe using a framework already at work? And anyone?
I think just in talking with people down at the Porter Shed and knowing what my company's doing on the front end, there's quite a big leap from even React 15 to React 16.
Yeah.
And so like even in this setup, we had the use of like ES 2017 classes, like
Yeah.
that, which don't seem to be the convention anymore.
Yeah.
I guess that's debatable.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then there's the like the one-way data flow stuff to think about too, like the implementation of Redux and hooks now, right?
Yes.
So those would be nice to explore at some point.
Yeah.
That transition from 15 to 16.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving code bases from one version to another can be really tricky, and I mean, like, I'm not sure about React. I'm pretty sure that they have a way to move code base from a version to another using some kind of tool. But yeah, it's not always the case, and yeah, the way the code is evolves is sometimes yeah, not gonna say annoying, but it's yeah, it tends to move a lot, and sometimes it's changed for almost no reason, so it's really hard to keep track on what's going on. But yeah, what I know is that the guys at Vue they write tools to merge or to rebuild projects automatically in their new version. So and it tends to work pretty well. So yeah.
We were talking about all the different, I'm going to say frameworks, and I know some of them are libraries, but
Yeah.
don't be angry at me. But we were talking last time about Vue and React and Angular and the different uses. Someone joined last time and they were using React Native, yeah. Have you tried it? Like, yeah?
Briefly, yeah.
So this person is developing a project there in the Porter Shed as well, and they're using native, but they're interested in the full React, obviously, but also Angular. What's the use of Angular? I think that we boil it down to React is very cool for like startups and SMEs. Angular is more enterprise grade, and from what we sort of extracted in the conversation, there's way more. It's more. I want to say bloated, even though with the GDG a bit more bloated, I think, for Angular. But in our studio, we used Polymer at some point as a library to build components, a bit like what's the name of the other ones? S something.
Stencil?
Yes.
Yes.
And then it was a nightmare, because the way I perceived it from the creative side is that the developers were building, they were molding Lego pieces that would have any sort of shape, and they wouldn't fit all together. Where when we moved to Vue, it felt like we bought a Lego set, and we could play with those pieces together really quick. And I think it's the same with React. It's this feeling that you can plug things together, and it's just gonna work. So well,
Yeah.
not always, but like.
It's the.
Is that correct? Is that?
Yeah, and the community as well. When you look at React, it's been here for a long time. It's maintained by Facebook, and they make a great deal of improvement on it just because they're using it. So they basically pour a ton of money into it, and that contributes to the community, and that's one way of doing it. So that means that it runs efficiently, and you're sure that it's been tested well. And if it's released, well, it means that Facebook is also using it, and you can be pretty sure that it works well. So I guess that's one assurance that you can have, and so you don't really, if you go to your boss and you tell them, well, I need to, or I think use React seems to be a good thing that we could do, and you tell them it's it's kind of it's made by Facebook, and then they are the ones testing it, using it, and so that must be pretty robust, right? And they will probably be okay with that. So that's one thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring some comic relief here, but what he's not telling you is that when we're in the office, he goes like, React? Pff, have you seen how slow Facebook is when you load it?
Look, well, I mean, it's not a secret that React is it's not a small framework. When you make an application with React, it's heavy, but the thing is, it works well, and the React team is really working hard to make it lighter, and you have also other options like Preact, which is a lighter version, and if really you want to work with something lighter that has maybe less features but that runs really well, that's another option. So yeah, that's one thing.
So are you guys using React only for the single page applications, or are you guys using React routers as well, because that adds much more complexity to the application, and it's very hard to understand how everything plugs in together,
Well,
It really varies on the project.
Yeah.
Mostly Vue, because it's the
Okay.
community is fantastic, and the guys on Discord are great. Worked on some React and Angular projects, but React, you talk about it. I'm the Vue lover. I think you too, but
Yeah. So you can use React on small to large projects, and that's no problem really. The cool thing is that if the project is maintained well and is structured in a proper way, it's very easy to find like connections between components and how things are set up. Plus like React has really great tools to directly built in the browser to look at your states and how your resources are updated and how many times a component was re-rendered, so that you make sure that you have a really nice app that runs efficiently. So it's really easy to test and to have something running really well on React. Some other libraries it's harder to implement the same level of testability and to make a really robust application without being a team of 30 people. Like for example, I mean, when you build an Angular application, for example, it's really made using kind of an old-fashioned way of thinking about components and logic. So everything is made with controllers, and everything has a method that it refers to, and you have.
do you use Angular?
No.
No.
Some of my team is using React. So,
Right.
We are also started using React, so it's sort of in a transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you use before?
It was all enterprise applications.
Okay.
It's
Oh wow. Okay.
Java.
Yeah.
With the Spring Webflows, Spring MVCs.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, to answer your question earlier, I feel like
Yeah.
We use it for like React. We've mostly used in our studio. We mostly used for mobile apps.
Mobile apps. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Because again, not because I just love Vue, but I think Vue is lighter on web, easier. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you used Vue? Any of you? Like, you're fluent with Vue.
No, I just used it.
Okay.
So what are the challenges with Vue? that you
What
found?
challenges?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any challenge with Vue.
Exactly.
So, does it come?
Copy and paste.
Does it come with the routers as well? Like just the way you have React routers.
yeah,
So it's inbuilt routing mechanism as well as it's static or whatever dynamic routing.
So the great thing with Vue is that the core, so they didn't make it like React. So the core is very small and very simple, and then you can add extra plugins, extra features to it. So if you need to use a router or a routing system, well, it has the same routing system that React uses, or a very similar one that you can just import to your project and you can start using it.
Yeah, like when we worked on other projects, we used other stacks, and it was Polymer was great at first. Like it was avant-gardist, you know, but then it sort of like wasn't adopted very, very widely. So difficult to get answers to how to solve a problem in the community. So we sort of like decided to transition every single project we developed into and use Vue. And I thought, obviously because I'm a noob, that this would be a nightmare like React or Angular. And transitioning a project from what the stack we had before to Vue, you made it seem like it was holidays.
So yeah, it was pretty simple just because we transitioned from an HTML based framework to another HTML based framework. The problem is if you transition from React to Vue, it will be very different and very much harder because you are transitioning from JSX to HTML. So it means that you're gonna have to take your code in JSX and to kind of create HTML files of that. And so yeah, the transition is much harder. But yeah, going from Polymer to Vue was a very simple step because they work in similar ways. They have the same like vision for how to create components, and so it's very easy to transition from one to another. And I think we're probably gonna have another dev talk about Vue at some point because it's because it's another great framework.
Yeah.
And it has different functionalities. So
Also, sorry, go ahead.
so that you can explore the differences between frameworks as well and pick the one you prefer.
There's one thing that we want to do with the dev talk is that Rossano and June have been giving the first 2 talks, but because it's dev talk, right? So anybody can give a talk, and then we can go through a Codelab and we can learn from each other. So if you guys want to give a dev talk and invite your
Or just to suggest a topic.
a topic, yeah.
There's a Trello Kanban board that we're just still in the process of setting up, but at the moment it's like view only. But yeah, there's a column where you can suggest a topic, there's a column where you can say, I'm going to take and talk about this topic.
Sorry, what is this?
And
It's on the forum? Is it on the forum?
It is on the forum.
It's on the
Yeah.
forum. So yeah, I think we should do that. I don't want to be pushy or anything like that, but
could you go
if you take 2 minutes to register on the forum and introduce yourself and everything, that'd be great. We'll share the resources. Can you put it on the screen? So GGG.
The forum on the MongoDB readme.
Yes. it
Yeah,
was.
GGG-Koei. No, sorry, what is it?
GGG-forum.
No, forum
Forum.
dot GGG dash Koei.com. We try to talk like this. There are a few conversations, and the Codelabs are there. All the resources, we're going to be trying to put everything that we can there. We try to make it the main communication board
Yeah.
because it's nice to come back from work and check out your threads and see where
Yeah,
it is at.
it's less linear than Discord, so it works pretty well for topic-based discussions.
It's old style, yeah. Discourse, we deployed this on Discourse. This is Discourse, sorry, and this is built with ancient technology, but it works super well.
Yeah, it's I would say it's kind of a semi ancient.
And it's a PWA.
Yeah, it's very interesting because they're using like a semi old stack with new text on top of it. So basically, like they're using Ruby, and the front end is built in Ember, I think. Ember, kind of an older framework. And
Yeah, but if you guys want to install that for your companies or anything like that, or your communities, don't use the Docker. Oh no, don't use the
oh yeah, the Bitnami instance.
Bitnami. Trash that. Don't no. Like,
it's
it's
terrible.
a nightmare. So are you familiar with Bitnami? As a gamer, probably you've seen that. Don't use that. Don't deploy with Bitnami. You won't be able to. There'll be problems everywhere, basically. And it's not up to date with the beta versions of the form. I would recommend. This is me, the community person in me, saying this is a great platform. If you're a developer, that you can manage yourself. You don't need to go, use an old V bulletin or PHP BB for those who, have used that in the past. It's awesome, and so we recommend it. I recommend it. They should hire me and then should pay me to make the promotion of their platform. But feel free to talk about it. I think you're seeing more than you should be seeing there. There's like threads from the admin board, but if you go on to the announcement one, the Kotlin one, the Kotlin one, that is the event that is happening on Saturday, and this is Kubra. It'd be great if you guys can come, because she's
bringing swag.
She's bringing swag, but she's traveling all the way from Reading, so it'd be, and she's really impatient to see some of the people here. So that's the next one, and there'll be another dev talk, I believe, in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, and that dev talk, we can talk about what we're gonna together. What you'd like to talk about, if you want us to bring a specific speaker that we can reach out to from a company. There are a few companies here in Galway that use a lot of Google Cloud Platform services, so if you're interested in those, we can talk about those. Julian is a big fan of Firebase as well. We'll have a talk about Firebase later this year, and DevFest. But DevFest, you probably all know about DevFest. We'll be organizing that as well at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So these are the updates. This is my job to keep you updated about these things. But this is cool. I cannot stress the fact that this is she's a great speaker, and she's just cool. So
yeah,
and there'll be free food. I can't. That's a plus always.
If you use Java as a language, and you'd like to see how it evolves toward the new language with Kotlin, and how easier it is to approach this language.
Can you show the picture that you posted on Twitter with Java and Kotlin?
If you would like to imagine your life without getters and setters,
Yeah.
you should come on Saturday.
Basically.
You guys at Ninth Impact use Java for Android development?
Unity and C#.
Oh, okay.
We do very little natively, only we need to, for example, plug into Firebase.
Okay.
But there is acceptable now Unity ports.
Okay.
Dynamic links? Is it Firebase dynamic links?
Yeah, it's like real-time databases and all that stuff that you use. Yeah. How's that called, Julian?
What?
The dynamic database for Firebase.
Real-time database?
Yeah,
They
just called
have
real-time?
two of them. They have real-time database and Firestore.
Firestore, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the great thing we're using with them for now is dynamic links. So we've got a link on an ad on YouTube, and if you open it on iOS, it goes straight to a specific place in the app. If you have the app installed, if not, it goes to the store. If you open it on desktop, it goes somewhere else.
That's really good.
Very nice. Yeah, the dynamic links and all their mobile solutions are very great. Like they have testing tools. They have crash analytics as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You can feel the passion of Julian talking about Firebase. Oh, they have all of these things, you know. Yeah. So where is that lovely picture you posted?
There,
there you go.
There it is.
Right. I guess that
Yeah.
illustrates the point very well. Can you zoom a bit on the text?
Yeah.
Okay, no, like it's
Zoom in.
no, it doesn't zoom the picture.
Yeah.
Just with command plus.
In fairness, it's kind of misleading because all of that code at the top left can be done by Visual Studio Code by right-clicking.
Yeah.
But it does
That's
look cleaner to read, you know.
But you can also use annotations to do setters and getters and stuff like that as well with certain libraries.
I just hate them. When we learned them the first time in college, I was like, what's the point of writing a language where you have to explicitly do this all the time?
It's bizarre.
It is.
It's
Yeah,
more
but
like,
it's imagine if you spoke English, but then you just use the very important words in a sentence, and then it would have no sense. Like I would talk to you and be like,
Are we talking
words
about
no
SMS
sense.
messaging?
Yeah, like yeah, exactly.
That's basically what happened. People always shorten things. don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah.
But it seems that Java never took that position. But I mean, in truth, there are ways of doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
That we don't have to be so verbose.
it's more like Scala, right? Kotlin?
It's more like what?
Is it more like Scala?
Scala. Oh, I don't know. You
I-
guys use Scala, no? No,
I've never
you
used
use Scala.
No, I didn't use Scala much, but to me, Scala was more object-oriented, right?
Functional.
It's functional.
Functional.
Yeah, it's functional plus object oriented. Like like
It's
for
when-
Oh,
Java.
it's a mix as well. Oh yeah. Oh, so yeah.
So when Java didn't have functional in JDK8,
Yeah.
then basically Scala was the solution to that.
Okay.
And now we have functional in Java.
JDK.
And I think Scala is, I mean, I don't want to really predict it. I mean, I think Scala's going to last as long.
Yeah.
Maybe. There's been a lot of investment in Scala. So.
Yeah, I would compare Kotlin more to newer languages like Swift or TypeScript, where you can find a mix of both object-oriented and functional.
So is it similar to Scala where it runs on the JVM effectively?
Yeah, Scala.
Yeah.
So no, for like the Kotlin has an implementation for JVM, but I think that it's also
Scala as well.
yeah, and you can run it in multiple ways, and there was a list somewhere.
I guess on Saturday we'll find out.
Yeah. You will definitely find out Saturday.
You should, if you want as well, Kubra's on our forum and she's also really interactive with us through Twitter, so if there's any questions you want to throw at her ahead of time,
She's really cool on Twitter, yeah.
yeah, she's great for responding to them. Like we said, she's really excited. So
She's very
it's good.
passionate about all of this.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
read the meetup because there's the Codelab afterwards.
Yes.
It's a good idea to prepare for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get your laptop sorted with like an Android
Yeah.
emulator and
Yeah.
Dev Studio and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we should do that.
Yeah.
Did she
Here's a
mention?
few hints on it? Yeah.
I think in the meetup group or something, there's like she gave us some instructions here.
Yeah, it's in the meetup description.
Yeah, no, on the GDG forum as well, like the post I think
Yeah.
contains it. If you
Yeah.
scroll down, yeah, like yeah, she says you should bring Intel G, the IDE, the Android Studio installed on the laptop. So the first part will be a talk about what she's learned working for FC Barcelona and all these groups. Second part is obviously refactoring to Kotlin. I believe it's going to be sessions of 45 minutes. So it'll be shorter than, more compact than, she's used to doing these things a lot, so it'll run smoothly.
Cool.
I hope.
So-
Yeah, I would I think like especially the Codelab part would be very interesting for professionals that are working with Java for a long time and are maybe looking to convert their code base to something else. So yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great. Well, I hope you guys had a great time. It was a bit long, but
If it was a great time, there'd be pizza.
okay, you organize pizza next time.
I'm assistant. But yeah, like Tony said, this is our second dev talk. So after the third one, we're looking to get somebody who's not Julian or Rossano to either propose a topic or ideally to go along for it. And the thing is, even if it's something that you're not a total expert in, 40 minutes of a code lab that you're teaching the people is, first of all, a great experience. And most of you probably are doing it in your day jobs anyways. So if you are interested, you have 4 weeks time to prepare or longer. So let us know, because that would be cool.
There'll be, as I said earlier on the forum, like all the conversations. I know you try and look for more people into the React community here. There are some React aficionados around the place.
There's
So.
plenty of
Front end in
interest.
general, just excited about JavaScript.
Oh, okay. Oh, JavaScript.
I'm
It's your best bet in town.
A lot of others, I think, like there are a couple of like people in the Portugal as well that are
Yeah.
doing like good
But
stuff on
none of them work with a monster like me who says, "Can you do this pixel perfect and add this function that do this and that?" And then pixel perfect CSS and HTML, but then the functions, I'm like, wait, like, can we do an animation that does that but not CSS? Can you add this in JavaScript?
With
and
no latency.
no latency, and he goes like, maybe we use Canva, or maybe we like, and then he goes into like this sort of like thought process where at first he was saying, that's impossible, and I said, no, nothing is impossible in code, and he goes, now he says, every time he says, yes, I can do it. He has no idea how he's gonna do it. He goes and then does it and researches it, and then he comes back with it done, and we're like, great, so it's good.
Yeah, I have to say the like especially the animation part for the front end. It's kind of picking up, and like a lot of people are starting to include like a lot of animation.
Do you want to put the real quick the merge store as an example?
Yeah.
Not us promoting our own stuff, just saying that there's a lot of it's all custom made in code. So it would be store, yeah. So this is a pet project for us, and see the animation of the particles there in the background, right? So that was source of a lot of discussion and angry conversations. It looks easy, like you're like, oh, I could do that in 2 seconds, but at first he was like trying to make it on his own fully JavaScript. I think it was
the first implementation was in CSS purely, and that was actually like I thought it would run like kind of well, just because it was just a couple of lines of CSS and just a very simple animation. But the thing is, it's like CSS is still limited in terms of resources and how much it takes to like render an animation.
It's not optimized as well. Like your MacBooks would go like on fire.
Especially like it's very dependent on the browser that you're running your code on, and it was kind of okay on Chrome, kind of okay on mouse.
Did you hear that?
Then when you switch to Safari, it was just going crazy. Like the CPU was just burning.
Yeah, you're blaming it on Safari, but.
So did you hand code it in HTML5?
At this point, that now is using Canvas, and it's using a very nice library called Animate.js, and there are a couple of very cool libraries to do simple animations like that.
I've done a few animations in Canvas. Even if you code it all yourself, like you can write games in it and everything. It's just brilliant. So awesome.
We want to make using all those cool, stacks. We want to make like every single experience that you have on the web pretty much not gamified, but like looks like an interface that has something moving on. It's very trendy to have all these things that move up. Like one of our competitors, you can put it on the screen if you want. It's called Dog Studio, I believe.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Those guys.
Who came first?
They came first, and
it's a
they
war.
are badass.
It's a war at this point.
Those guys are badass. They use 3D. they use everything that you could possibly do in this in
Nice parallax.
parallax moving. Yeah,
That's
this
sweet.
this is the sort of thing that we're going to try to make happen with advanced front end development, basically.
So yeah, it's kind
Like you see how the text goes behind the 3D and everything.
Yeah.
That's cool.
like this.
So we're gonna try to do that. We actually were super passionate about that. So
Yeah, like
That's impressive.
Yeah. It looks even nicer without the, like when you're sharing on the screen, it doesn't go as flowy.
Oh yeah, when you use your trackpad.
Definitely check it out.
So cool.
It's so nice. Go check out our competitor, guys.
But if you need anything, ask us because
Yeah. Don't go with them.
Sounds like an early
They're
startup.
too expensive.
yeah.
they're cool kids. They're part of the cool kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the new thing in web as well in front end is how animators are now part of teams and like 3D animators and they're
JavaScript animators.
yeah, and JavaScript, and it became a job as well. Like now there are people that specialize in JavaScript animation for the web, and they like render 3D models using Canvas and stuff like that. Oh yeah, that's their website.
And he's saying that right now, very casually and like super relaxed. But in the office, he goes like, "I'm not a JavaScript animator, okay?" And then we just
Like,
do it.
It is a proper.
It's a proper job.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a new one of those new modern jobs.
It's really hard.
It's so
Just export our project to WebGL and it's done.
exactly.
Yeah, you can do that as well.
And then I had to figure out how do I get a 2 gigabyte game to be small enough to be downloaded. So
Yeah.
HTTP
That would be,
to gzip, I think we're down to 90 megs, but it'll still take you 5 minutes to unpack them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's still good.
Getting there.
It's huge, like the difference in
Yeah, yeah.
size. That could be an interesting talk.
Okay, that's someone else in the office.
All right.
Run to me.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It was great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really good.
I'll stop the stream. John. Can you stop the stream? I don't know. You started. So.
See you guys.
Zig's on the background.